Today I'm celebrating Peter Sellers, who is another actor, another dearly beloved British actor who was a comic genius, rated by many as highly as Chaplin. And yet he was another tragic character whose own personal life was a very challenging thing for him to endure, despite all of the adoration of millions of people across not just the UK but across the English-speaking world. Peter Sellers struggled immensely in his role as father, in his role as husband, and had a number of failed marriages, and probably was the cause of a great deal of suffering for his children. And yet, his genius found its way to public recognition through his ability to see the funny side, to see the lighter side of things, to be able to convey with great humour all the various aspects of life, because comedy is always on that knife edge between pain and pleasure. It's always somehow embracing the darkest elements of life. He didn't take his life, but one could imagine that it may have gone that way. And he finally died of a heart attack. And I think the reason I feel to honour him, beyond just the national treasure that he came to represent to so many British people, he was the star of the Pink Panther series. He was the crazed maniac in Doctor Strangelove. He was a figurative part of the Goon Show, which for a whole generation of people was the funniest thing that they had ever heard, back in the days when radio still championed television as a form of entertainment. So despite him having been this national treasure and having this unbelievable grip of what it is to be funny and to see the funny side in things, he had immense troubles in terms of how to live. And I think that in a time where so many people are suffering from what is often classified as mental health issues, which I really reject, because I feel it puts the onus on either the brain, as if the brain is malfunctioning, or it puts the onus on the individual as if being well adjusted to a sick society is any sign of sanity or of great health. I mean, to me, it seems perfectly logical that where we have such a profoundly sick society, people will inevitably be experiencing sickness as they try to adjust to a society that doesn't really allow for the things that we need as human beings, things to which we became accustomed over thousands of years of evolution in small tribes. Now we have to adjust to being a seemingly anonymous blob in a herd of billions. So, as today so many people are struggling with their own mental health issues, I would say their own issues with what it is to be human in this modern world, many people fall under the spell of thinking that if only they had a certain amount of money, a prerequisite number of loved ones, that if only they had the right car, the right job, the right adulation, the right number of followers, the right channels to follow, the right... somehow this magic formula would render them happy. But what's really the likelihood of that? When we see people like Robin Williams and Peter Sellers, who, despite all of the adulation, despite all of the money and the riches and the recompense and the lovers, and still couldn't find enough to quench their thirst, couldn't find that right amount of self-acceptance that would enable them to to see life for its beauty as well as for its challenges. Someone I find very inspiring asserts that the art of grieving is an essential aspect of life which we have lost touch with, and that dread is a very real emotion that people experience but is given very little public attention, and that the cure for dread is gratitude. And maybe that's partly why I'm speaking to these individuals and speaking to these issues, and also doing this series to remind myself that every day there is something to celebrate. There is something for which I can be grateful. And that in itself is an antidote to those feelings of dread that can haunt people, that can haunt all of us if we succumb. So today, as a symbol of our own suffering, I'd like to remember Peter Sellers.